our next respondent, which is Jan Regner, who actually did his PhD in Catholic Theological Faculty in Prague, but before he studied in the Gregorian University of Rome and also fundamental theology in Frankfurt, Germany. And well, this year, only in March, he finished his religious formation in Kandy, Sri Lanka. So, Jan, I'll give you the floor, and we kindly ask you for your response to Colby's paper.
Thank you, František. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Colby Dickinson for the inspiring paper on the poverty of history and the poverty of theology. Being a Jesuit, I am very excited to have an occasion to respond to someone from the Loyola University, Chicago. In my response, I would like to formulate two questions that possibly could be useful for the discussion. Let me start from my personal point of view. What was for me particularly interesting in the previous lecture was the criticism of analogy and the traditional understanding of theologizing. For a long time, I have been interested in the method in theology, what provoked me to ask many similar questions. But unfortunately, the classical concept of analogia entis could not help me to answer them. Thanks to the late philosophy of Austrian thinker Ludwig Wittgenstein, I understood that any theological discourse could be seen as a specific language game, Sprachspiel, that includes both verbal and non-verbal communication between members of the same community, a group of people who share the same form of life, the same Lebensform. Later, I learned from Bernard Lonergan how important is both the process of understanding and the transforming threefold experience of conversion as a conditio sine qua non of any theology. For him, the authentic subjectivity only could lead us to understand objectively any object of our interest. That helped me to see how important could be the role of authenticity in the theological discourse. The Canadian thinker offers inspiring patterns of heuristic structure coming from experiencing to interpreting, from interpreting to judging, from judging to being responsible, from being responsible to being in love, that is result of the religious conversion. According to Lonergan, on the level of being in love, we are able to go beyond, to transcend ourselves. In this context, my question to Colby Dickinson would be thus: what role could authentic spirituality play in both theologizing and in non-violent presenting ideas? 2 months ago, I came back from Sri Lanka, where I met the major representative of the Asian Theology of Liberation, Father Aloysius Piris. I found his thoughts quite inspiring, so let me present some of them that could, according to my opinion, help us to see Colby Dickinson's presentation in a new perspective. It is to say that the theology of Father Piris was influenced partly by the experience of the Sri Lankan Civil War. Beginning in July 1983, there was an intermittent insurgency against the government by the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, also known as the Tamil Tigers, which fought to create an independent Tamil state called Tamil Eelam in the north and the east of the island. After a 26-year military campaign, the Sri Lankan military defeated the Tamil Tigers in May 2009, bringing the civil war to an end. But unfortunately, the tension between Tamil and Sinhalese people is still there. For over 25 years, the war caused significant hardships for the population, environment, and the economy of the country, which an initial estimated 80,000 till 100,000 people killed during its course. Other circumstances that influenced Pires in his theological approach, according to my opinion, are the caste system and the cheerless situation of the poor in South Asia. In his theology, Pires does the option for the poor. That is why, for him, quote, the good man concept lying behind the doctrine of the incarnation eclipsed the God-poor covenant sealed on the cross, end quote. And so a covenant spirituality must pervade the church entire lifestyle, liturgy, and pastoral care. Quote, this spirituality is our faith response to the covenant, our participation in the justice of the covenant. Our faith is not merely our trust in God, whose justice never fails, the little ones, who are covenant partners, but also our own unfailing fidelity to the same covenant. That is, our solidarity with the poor. End quote. And so, according to my opinion, such an authentic spirituality leads us necessarily to the embodied theology. Pires, in his book, The Genesis of an Asian Theology of Liberation, recalls Panika's lapidary statement, quote, there are three moments in the evolution of any religion: the experience, the memory of that experience, and the interpretation of the memory. In his theology, Pires distinguishes three levels or phases that are in permanent interaction. First, the primordial experience of liberation, such as Exodus of Israel and resurrection of Jesus. Second, the collective memory of that experience that is presented in scriptures, ritual celebration, and traditional lifestyles testifying to that experience. And finally, the theological interpretation of that memory that varies for each generation of each era in terms of different circumstances according to three contexts. First, popular cosmic. Second, intellectual academic. And third, socio-political. And here I would like to ask the second and last question. How can we newly articulate this relation between the both phases, mediating and mediated? And so between religious traditions mediating from the past socio-cultural context and the theology mediated into the contemporary socio-cultural context. And how can we avoid, in this articulation, something that we could call idolatry in language, as Richard Rorty would put it? Thank you for your attention.